Brilliant fireworks covered the lake as Adrian and I dropped to one knee at the same moment. With trembling hands, I opened my ring box and asked him to marry me. Adrian stared at me in astonishment before revealing the unique blue diamond he had prepared for me. He said that he wanted us to build a true home together, a place where I would always be the most important person. After every storm and misunderstanding, the man I had once tried desperately to avoid had become the safest home my heart had ever known. If you want to know how our chaotic story became a love that changed both our lives, please stay with us until the end. Please like the video and subscribe to BL Storytime for more unforgettable stories. The soft music in the quiet bar could not calm the panic rising inside me. I sat curled up in my seat and watched Lucas Bennett slam his hand on the table because I wanted to withdraw from the dating show Heartbeat guests. He accused me of changing as if I had become a completely different person, and he was right. I was no longer the arrogant Ethan Sterling from before. I had opened my eyes and discovered that I had transmigrated into the melodramatic novel I had read the previous night. I had become a vicious supporting character whose final fate was to lose the use of his legs and beg on the streets. If I wanted to protect my miserable little life, I had only one choice. I had to stay far away from the male lead and that cursed dating show. With tears in my eyes, I put on my most pitiful puppy expression and apologized. I am sorry. I truly did not mean to do this. Lucas softened when he saw me surrender, but he reminded me that the contract had already been signed and the penalty was enormous. I assumed the money on the original owner's bank cards would be enough to pay the penalty 100 times over, so I nodded eagerly. Then Lucas suddenly stared at my backside with a calculating expression that made every hair on my body stand up. He said there was another way to erase the debt. I could film an advertisement for a hemorrhoid hospital. I nearly fainted and stammered out my refusal. I do not think that is a good idea. The truth is that I have hemorrhoids too, and I would be embarrassed to let anyone see them. Instead of giving up, Lucas became even more enthusiastic. He said that made me perfect for the advertisement because I could receive free treatment while providing real before and after photographs. Confused and pressured into drinking several cocktails, I soon became so dizzy that I staggered into the restroom to vomit. When I came out, I saw a tall man with broad shoulders and the flawless proportions of a supermodel. My mind was spinning from the alcohol and from everything Lucas had said about finding a healthy and attractive backside. I immediately focused my attention on him. When he started to leave, I hurried after him and called out with a tangled tongue, "Please wait." The man stopped and coldly asked if I wanted his autograph. I shook my head, gazed at him with shining expectation, and asked whether he needed hemorrhoid surgery. When he froze, I assumed I had phrased the question badly, so I quickly explained that I wanted him to appear in an advertisement, one that would not show his face and would only show his backside. I promised that the hospital would solve his problem and return his precious flower to its innocent condition. His face turned as dark as charcoal and veins rose across his forehead, but I continued following him and talking without pause. I boldly declared that as long as he was willing to offer his backside to the advertisement, I could pay any price. Lucas finally came running over with all the color drained from his face and respectfully greeted the man as Mr. Hawthorne. Only then did I vaguely understand that I had offended someone important. Even so, I foolishly grabbed his hand, gave Lucas a silly smile, and announced that I had caught the beautiful backside he wanted and was giving it to him as a gift. The man named Adrian Hawthorne walked away with murder in his eyes, while I collapsed and fell asleep where I stood. In my dreams, I even imagined myself becoming intimate with the handsome celebrity. When I woke the next morning, every dream of a wealthy and comfortable life vanished after I received a call from my father, Marcus Sterling. He furiously scolded me for offending Adrian and announced that he had frozen every one of my bank cards so that I could reflect on my behavior. I stared at my phone in despair and wondered why my life had become so miserable. I could not leave the dating show, and now I had no money. Was I truly going to expose my backside in a hospital advertisement? Lucas shouted through the phone because I had suddenly changed my mind and refused to pay the contract penalty. He demanded to know how I could have no money when I had claimed the day before that I could pay 10 times the required amount. I pulled my cap lower and quietly explained that I did not want this either. The moment I woke up, my father had frozen all my cards. Lucas said I deserved it after clinging to Adrian and causing a drunken scene. I was so ashamed that I wanted to disappear into the ground. A video of me demanding to inspect the famous actor Adrian Hawthorne was already at the top of the trending searches, accompanied by a headline saying that an award-winning actor had been harassed by a pervert. Adrian was not only an award-winning actor, he was also a powerful corporate president. Fortunately, he had a cold and indifferent temperament. Otherwise, I might already have vanished from this world. Lucas gave me an ultimatum. I could either film the dating show or appear in the hemorrhoid advertisement. I weakly asked whether there was a third option. He calmly started dialing the emergency number and threatened to call the police, which made me surrender immediately. I will choose the dating show. Facing the storms of romance is still better than exposing my backside to the entire world. The next morning, I found barely more than 100 yuan in the back of a cabinet. I dragged my suitcase through the crowded subway and headed toward the filming location. My father was truly ruthless. He had not left me a single useful yuan, so I had to become self-sufficient if I wanted to avoid begging on the streets earlier than the original plot demanded. While I was half asleep on the train, I noticed a pervert harassing a young woman. My sense of justice instantly flared. I put on my sunglasses and moved behind him. The moment he reached out again, I grabbed his backside and smiled like a shameless flirt. "Darling, you have a fine backside." I deliberately lowered my voice and whistled at him, determined to make him experience his own disgusting behavior. The furious man shoved me away and tried to escape, but I punched him in the stomach and sent him tumbling to the floor. To my surprise, the young woman screamed in alarm and rushed over to help him. I froze and wondered whether I had accidentally ruined some unusual romantic game between them. It turned out to be a staged scene created by the production team to test the reactions of the guests. The young woman was Hannah Lane, the assistant director and producer of Heartbeat Guests. She shook my hand and praised me. She introduced herself, apologized for frightening me, and asked whether I was all right. I forced a smile and said that I was fine, but I was more concerned about the man on the floor. Fortunately, I had not hit him any harder. Hannah took me to the villa and told me to explore while we waited for the other guests. I pulled my suitcase into the enormous house and promised myself that I would behave carefully and avoid making enemies. While looking around upstairs, I suddenly heard vicious insults coming from a hidden corner. A man named Hugo Tanner was loudly humiliating someone else. He called the person poor and lowly and mocked him for pretending to be pure and noble. I remembered that Hugo was another doomed supporting character in the original novel, but his role ended even sooner than mine. Unable to suppress my foolish sense of heroism, I stepped around the corner and interrupted him. I told him that if he wanted to find a partner, he should not judge other people only by their faces. He should look in a mirror and examine his own face first. Hugo was already burning with anger. The instant I mocked him, he demanded to know who I was. I strode forward, pulled the young man he had insulted behind me, and glared back at him. "I am a beautiful butterfly, and my full name is Daddy Butterfly. You can simply call me Daddy." He repeated the name in confusion, then realized that I had tricked him. He seized my collar and prepared to hit me. Although I was trembling inside with his fist so close to my face, I forced myself to remain firm. I dared him to touch me and reminded him that cameras surrounded us. Once the footage spread online, he would have to explain his behavior to the public. He glanced warily at the cameras and reluctantly released me, then warned me to stop interfering in other people's business. I imitated his tone and warned him not to behave recklessly. I told him that I was extremely delicate, and if he touched me even lightly, I would fall to the floor and refuse to get up. Then he would owe me at least 88,000 yuan in compensation. A ringing phone rescued us from the confrontation, and Hugo left in fury. Only then did I turn to look at the person I had protected. He was slightly taller than me, and his beautiful eyes seemed to contain endless warmth. I silently wondered where the production team had found such a stunning employee. I told him that it had been no trouble, and that someone as beautiful as him would certainly become famous if he entered the entertainment industry. To my surprise, he smiled gently and said that he had already entered the industry. He was merely a newcomer, so it was understandable that I did not recognize him. Then he introduced himself as Liam Blake. Those two words struck me like lightning. He was the irresistible beauty adored by everyone in the original novel. I stammered out a greeting while screaming inside. I feared that in the future, his affection would leave me with both legs crippled, just as the story had described. Liam enthusiastically pulled me downstairs to join the others. When we arrived, Hannah asked everyone to choose a seat according to their romantic role, one side for dominant partners and the other side for receptive partners. When Liam tried to pull me toward the receptive side, I immediately freed my hand, lifted my chest, and announced that I belonged on the other side. He looked at me suspiciously and asked whether I was certain that I was a dominant partner. I straightened my back and asked whether I did not look like one. I was 175 centimeters tall, which was an average height for a man. I was determined to create the image of a pure and innocent young man so that I could still earn a living as a model in the future. While we waited, I became distracted by the legendary chest of the male lead, Gavin Grant, who had just appeared. When he approached in a tight shirt that revealed his powerful chest, I accidentally exclaimed that it was enormous. Everyone stared at me, and I desperately corrected myself by claiming that I meant his eyes were enormous. The gathering began with an arm wrestling contest to determine who could choose a room and a roommate. Surrounded by the aura of a male lead, Gavin easily defeated every opponent on the dominant side. When my turn approached, I trembled because I was only pretending to be dominant. Liam unexpectedly stepped forward to challenge Gavin. The moment I saw Gavin smiling uncontrollably and finding excuses to touch Liam's hand during the match, I knew a wonderful scene was about to unfold. Gavin deliberately allowed Liam to win, which gave Liam the right to choose his roommate. Gavin waited with eager confidence, but Liam pointed at me instead. "Let us go." I stared at him in confusion, while Gavin turned into a statue. I stood on the fragile boundary of a dramatic confrontation. Liam insisted on pulling me upstairs, ignoring the fiery gaze Gavin had fixed on my back. Filled with unease, I quietly asked why he had chosen me. I told him that he was supposed to choose Gavin. Liam merely gave me a sweet smile and calmly explained that he was afraid the others would take advantage of him. With me, however, he felt completely safe. In an attempt to save the last fragments of my dignity and push the plot back onto its proper path, I claimed that I would take advantage of him. I told him not to be fooled by my respectable appearance, because I was actually very shameless. My desperate effort earned only a teasing laugh from Liam. He said that he wanted to see exactly how shameless I could be. The tension reached its peak when Gavin used the excuse of carrying luggage to force his way into our room just before the door was locked for the livestream. I could only curl up on the sofa and fear the terrible ending described in the original story. To break the awkward atmosphere, we threw ourselves into a battle on our phones. I was normally a gentle person, but the moment I started playing a game, I became someone completely different. That was especially true when I witnessed Gavin's dreadful skills. I nearly cursed when he was defeated again and again. Then I remembered the camera and hurried to replace the curse with an awkward piece of wisdom. I said that grass was the most resilient plant in the world and worthy of our admiration. I told Gavin not to worry about his score of 0 victories and 8 defeats. Even when Liam volunteered to support and comfort him, Gavin's poor skills still trapped them both in a deadly ambush. At the most dangerous moment, I guided my character out of the grass and performed a smooth series of attacks that destroyed the entire enemy team. The triumphant voice of the game system rang through the room. Liam excitedly wrapped his arms around me, his eyes shining with admiration. He said that I was incredible and that he had never seen anyone play so well. Then he asked whether he could become my little support player in the future. Lost in the excitement of victory, I absent-mindedly agreed. I did not notice that Gavin's face had turned gray with jealousy. In his anger, he decided to drag Adrian into the game so that he could take revenge. I almost laughed. If Adrian learned that Gavin wanted his help to bully his future partner, the first person to be beaten would certainly be Gavin. Before I could recover from these unexpected schemes, Hannah pulled me aside and made a proposal that left me shocked. She wanted me to promote a romantic pairing with Gavin. I asked whether she was joking. I resisted because I was afraid of disturbing the original plot, but the much higher payment and the promise of a brighter future were impossible to ignore. In the end, I reluctantly agreed to interact with him for the cameras. Meanwhile, Gavin was furious because his terrible gaming record had become a joke across social media. Even his close friend Adrian threatened to end their friendship in order to protect his own reputation. With no other choice, Gavin used a ruthless threat to force the famous actor to appear on the show. He told Adrian that if he did not visit the set the next day, Gavin would announce during the live stream that Adrian had taught him how to play. That evening brought more unnecessary conflict when the 8 guests divided the household chores. To avoid Gavin, I pretended that I could not cook and volunteered to clean with Ryan Cole. Unfortunately, I became the target of another trick from Hugo. When Hugo deliberately splashed dirty water on me and offered a false apology, I gave him a sharp smile and answered directly in front of the cameras. I told him that his hands were exactly like his character, and that he should control both more carefully in the future. Then I laughed and claimed that I was only joking, so surely he would not be offended. The tension faded only when the smell of food guided us to the dining table. Gavin had prepared a nightmarish dish of scrambled eggs with tomatoes. When he looked at me expectantly and asked for my opinion, I grimaced and gave an answer so honest that he froze in place. It was a remarkable combination of delicious and disgusting, and it was extremely difficult to eat. The atmosphere around the dinner table seemed to freeze after my blunt judgment, and Liam quickly tried to rescue the situation. He gently pulled the plate toward himself and claimed that the problem was his own fault. I could not bear to let him accept the blame, but I still seized the chance to embarrass the male lead and destroy any rumor that paired us together. I told Liam not to defend Gavin. Something this dark and terrible could only have been invented by Gavin himself. I never imagined that the audience would interpret my sideways glances as a dramatic display of jealousy. Without intending to, I bound my name to Gavin's across every discussion forum. The turmoil continued when a battle over the dirty dishes exposed Hugo's lazy and arrogant nature. When I saw him trying to force all the work onto his new companions, I could no longer remain silent. I stood at the kitchen entrance and mocked him with a cold smile. I told him that I had just pulled out 2 paper towels and asked whether I could conveniently pull out a few slaps for his face as well. My refusal to retreat, along with Ryan's timely intervention, forced Hugo to obey the rules. Inside, he was probably raging like a wild boar trapped at the end of a narrow road. Late that night, I was astonished to receive a small mercy from my supposed father, Marcus Sterling. He allowed me to reclaim my expensive designer belongings, although my bank cards remained frozen. When I saw items worth hundreds of thousands, I hurriedly stuffed all of them into a torn plastic bag. I wanted to hide them from everyone and protect the last of my emergency wealth before my true identity was exposed. Early the next morning, while sleep still clouded my mind, a commotion downstairs woke me. The award-winning actor Adrian Hawthorne had truly appeared to rescue Gavin. I had barely shown my face while searching for the plastic bag that held my fortune when my eyes met his. The memory of my drunken harassment made every hair on my body rise. I quickly grabbed 2 large apples, covered my face, and shuffled backward like a frightened turtle. Inside, I prayed that he had come to see Gavin and had not come to find me. Unfortunately, Gavin's hateful enthusiasm destroyed every hope of escape. He pulled me back and introduced us. Unable to look directly at the powerful actor, I bent forward in a bow so deep that my body was almost folded in half. In a tiny and frightened voice, I said that I would never dare offend him and that I had admired him for a long time. I greeted him again and again, then claimed that our introductions were complete and tried to leave. The true disaster arrived when Hugo made a loud scene about losing a watch worth a fortune. He insisted that everyone's luggage had to be searched, because he intended to frame me. Under the pressure of public opinion and Adrian's overwhelming presence, every bag was opened in turn. When they reached my torn plastic bag, Hannah stared in shock at the collection of expensive designer goods inside. The most disturbing discovery, however, was a strange black bag that suddenly fell out. Believing that he had found evidence against me, Hugo eagerly emptied its contents across the floor. Everyone stared in disbelief. The bag contained nothing but intimate products, along with a note from an assistant addressed to Gavin. The note said that the assistant had bought too many items and reminded Gavin to protect his health. The room became completely still. All the color drained from Hannah's face as she turned toward me with deep suspicion. She asked whether Gavin and I used those things together. The question turned me into stone. Inside, I screamed at the terrible injustice. Who had placed those horrifying objects in my luggage and transformed me into an accomplice in this humiliating scene during a live broadcast? A frightening silence filled the living room. The intimate products remained displayed before everyone, making the air almost impossible to breathe. Ryan quickly gathered the scattered items and scolded Hugo, but Hugo had lost all reason. He continued tearing through my luggage like a madman. In the middle of the chaos, Adrian calmly produced the missing watch. With an indifferent expression, he said that Hugo was probably searching for it. The famous actor had seen through the clumsy scheme from the beginning. He not only exposed Hugo's disgraceful plot, he also used his influence as a representative of the watch brand to trap Hugo completely. Under relentless questioning, Hugo became confused and exposed his own lies. Ryan and Hannah immediately announced that his contract had been canceled and ordered him to leave the production. After the storm passed, I still wondered about the mysterious black bag. I turned and glared suspiciously at Gavin, demanding to know why such things had appeared in my luggage. He innocently denied any involvement. He said that if he wanted to give such a gift to anyone, he would give it to Liam, so it had nothing to do with me. Adrian stood nearby with an unusually uncomfortable expression. Even so, he redirected the conversation and blamed everything on Hugo so that the matter could finally end. I reluctantly accepted that explanation, but an astonishing theory formed in my mind. I became convinced that the production team had created this entire scheme to force Gavin and me to promote our romantic pairing. I felt extremely proud of my intelligence for seeing through everything. After helping us, Adrian left with his usual cold indifference. I remained behind, worrying about whatever strange challenges awaited me. I hid in my room and prepared to send Hannah a carefully worded complaint, but I discovered her mourning the fact that a replacement guest had suffered an accident and could no longer attend. When she complained about her miserable and empty life, I offered a deadly piece of comfort. I told her that I was not trying to comfort her. I merely wanted to say that her wretched life did not even contain enough substance to deserve the word wretched. My words finally drove Hannah mad. Through clenched teeth, she swore that the next day she would make me experience true suffering through the most impossible challenges the show could create. When I thought about Hannah tearing out her hair because the production lacked another guest, I decided to show great mercy. I temporarily forgot about the bag of intimate products, which allowed Adrian to escape another disaster without being questioned by me. The next day, Gavin challenged me to badminton and suffered a humiliating defeat, followed by a terrible haircut that destroyed his confidence. Seeking revenge and desperate to remain close to Liam, he involved Adrian's mother and forced Adrian to abandon his vacation and join the show that very night. His unexpected arrival filled me with panic, while Gavin remained certain that no one could steal Liam's attention. To break the frozen atmosphere, Hannah announced a special episode built around secret missions. I prayed for a simple challenge, but when I opened my paper, my heart nearly stopped at the words written there. I had to slap the backside of the tallest guest twice without letting that person notice. I looked at the height chart. The tallest guest was Adrian Hawthorne. Why was my fate forever bound to backsides? First there had been the hemorrhoid advertisement, and now I had to complete a secret slapping mission. Could Adrian and I not share one elegant subject between us? I pulled at my hair and asked Hannah what would happen if I failed. She gave me a cunning smile and explained that anyone who failed more than 3 times would have to wear a maid costume and serve the others for an entire day. I would rather die than allow my dominant image to collapse like that. As I sadly headed toward my room, I encountered Adrian. When I saw him carrying a sports bag, I immediately tried to win his favor. I asked how someone as important as him could carry something so heavy and insisted on doing it for him. I assumed the bag would be light, but the weights inside dragged my entire body forward. I fell to my knees directly at the famous actor's feet. Overwhelmed by pain and embarrassment, I blurted out the first excuse that entered my mind and wished him a happy new year. Adrian stared at me without words and reminded me that it was only March. My legs hurt so badly that they trembled, and I could not stand. My knees were already turning purple. Adrian sighed, bent down, and unexpectedly lifted me into his arms like a princess. I panicked and tried to struggle, but he coldly ordered me to stop moving. He asked whether I wanted everyone upstairs to see me crawling across the floor, then demanded to know which room was mine. I pointed the way in a tiny voice. My heart raced as my body rested against his strong chest. I had to admit that Adrian was handsome enough to inspire dangerous thoughts. I quickly shook my head and forced those shameless ideas away. Once we reached the room, I clumsily tried to treat the injury myself and spilled the medicinal liquid across the floor. Adrian appeared in the doorway with a mocking expression and asked whether this was the great skill I had boasted about. He explained that everyone else had already formed a pair, which meant that he and I would be partners. Then he approached and began treating my injury. He pressed hard to break up the bruising. The pain brought tears to my eyes, and I could not stop moaning. I begged him to slow down and be gentler. Adrian remained cold and said that pain was necessary for healing. He told me to endure it for a little longer. Unfortunately, Gavin and Liam happened to pass the room while those suspicious sounds were escaping through the door. My painful cries echoed so loudly that both men rushed inside, believing that Adrian and I were fighting. Liam anxiously crouched beside my bruised knee, while Adrian quietly left. He dragged his careless friend outside and arranged an exchange of teams, protecting me from an attack by Gavin's most obsessive admirers. When only the two of us remained, a strange silence filled the room. Exhausted, I collapsed onto the sofa and drifted into a dream filled with beautiful men. Just as I was about to touch the perfectly shaped stomach of a dream lover, someone woke me. I angrily swung my hand and delivered a loud slap. Then I opened my eyes and discovered that my palm was resting directly on the backside of Adrian Hawthorne. In complete panic, I stammered out an apology. I claimed that I had mistaken him for a mosquito. He remained strangely calm and merely reminded me to take a shower, which allowed the unbearable embarrassment to fade. My bad luck had not finished with me. In the bathroom, I discovered an expensive diamond watch that Adrian had left beside the sink. I was about to return it when my injured leg suddenly gave way. The priceless watch fell directly into the toilet in front of its owner. I frantically reached for it and promised to retrieve it. Unfortunately, my other hand accidentally pressed the flush button. Water roared through the bowl and carried both the watch and my soul into the pipes. Adrian calmly informed me that the watch was worth 5 million yuan. I turned to stone. In a weak voice, I promised that I would repay him. I had no money now, but I swore that the moment I obtained any, I would return everything I owed. That night, I assumed Adrian was asleep. I quietly approached his bed and performed 3 solemn bows as if I were conducting a memorial ceremony. The first bow apologized for the incident at the bar. The second apologized for the bag of weights. The third apologized for the watch. I did not know that Adrian was awake. He silently wondered why my apology resembled a farewell to the dead. Early the next morning, the heat surrounding Adrian's name swept through every corner of the internet. All the earlier scandals disappeared like soap bubbles under the force of his popularity. His terrifying influence only made my skin prickle with fear. If he happened to mention the watch or the incident at the bar, my life would truly be ruined. Even so, fate continued arranging its games. Gavin changed teams so that he could remain beside Liam, leaving me alone as the partner of the cold and distant film star. The next challenge required every pair to sell a product, and fate handed Adrian and me hemorrhoid ointment. I abandoned my dignity, created a shameless slogan, and attracted a foreign customer who recognized Adrian and bought everything. While helping the others sell lipstick, I became the model, and Adrian's gaze lingered on my red lips long enough to make my heart move. The program then sent us into a haunted escape room. A ghost appeared, and I threw myself into Adrian's arms, crushed him against a wall, stepped on his expensive shoes, and tore open his shirt. I tried to fasten the buttons, opened them again by mistake, and nearly destroyed the live stream with embarrassment. Even so, Adrian calmly solved the final clues and led me outside. At the market, I protected our small budget while Adrian requested expensive seafood. Back at the villa, I revealed that I could cook and prepared a magnificent meal. I gave Adrian the finest portions because he was my creditor, but everyone interpreted my attention as proof that I wanted the protection of a powerful man. When everyone had eaten with complete satisfaction, Adrian suddenly called my name in a serious voice. Ethan Sterling. I jumped and answered respectfully, then asked whether something was wrong. My heart nearly escaped my chest when he told me to follow him upstairs. I walked behind Adrian with my thoughts in chaos. I imagined hundreds of classic scenes in which a powerful creditor demanded payment for a debt of 5 million yuan. I told myself that if the worst happened, I might have to offer my body in exchange for mercy. Inside the room, Adrian only wanted me to repair his phone because he trusted my technical skill. An embarrassing page on the screen forced me to claim that I loved exercise, so he immediately took me to the gym. I chose a weight far beyond my strength and needed his help stretching afterward. Our painful and suspicious conversation was overheard by Hannah and the camera team. At breakfast, my trembling arms exposed the disaster, but I protected my pride by claiming that I had lifted 300 kilograms. Adrian nearly choked when he heard the impossible number. My bad luck continued when Hannah announced the new team assignment. Once again, I had been paired with Adrian. She even gave me a meaningful wink. Our next mission took us to a farm to prepare spicy chicken. During the drive, a sudden turn threw me against Adrian and my hand landed on his firm chest. I told him that he was extremely hard, then desperately explained that I meant his muscles. His innocent questions convinced me that heaven had given him beauty, wealth, and talent while taking away one important masculine ability. At the farm, Adrian captured a chicken with a handful of grain, while I exhausted myself chasing another across the field. We cooked together, and every accidental touch made his ears red. When he reached for a hot pot, I pulled his hand beneath cold water and felt the strength in his fingers. We finished the meal successfully, and I gave him the best portion as another payment toward my debt. That night, hunger kept me awake in our quiet shared room. Adrian noticed and offered to take me downstairs for a late meal. Before doing so, he cleverly turned off every camera in the living room. In the dim darkness, I accidentally walked into his broad back and apologized again. Adrian unexpectedly turned, lowered his face toward mine, and asked a question that nearly made my heart fall from my chest. Was I truly so afraid of him? I looked at Adrian with intense tension and wondered whether he had seen through my cowardice. He had disabled the live stream because he wanted an honest answer. He believed that he had treated me well, yet I always avoided him as if he were a tiger. I lowered my head and quietly said that I was not afraid. I simply respected him deeply. He laughed and reminded me that we were equals, so I did not need to behave with such formality. At last, I admitted that I feared being forced to repay the 5 million yuan for the watch while I had nothing to my name. When he saw that I truly intended to settle the debt, Adrian offered a practical arrangement. I could repay him through cooking. Each meal would reduce the debt by 500 yuan. My long road toward freedom suddenly became much brighter. That night, I demonstrated my value by preparing instant noodles with cheese and milk. When Adrian praised my talent for making noodles, my shameless mind twisted his words into something indecent and my face became red. Adrian remained completely serious. He told me that I was not allowed to fear him from that day onward. I silently decided that he was a kind man whose only unfortunate weakness was his masculine ability. I would have to take good care of him. The belief that he was incapable took root in my mind. I had no idea how severely I would be punished for that misunderstanding in the future. The next morning, Adrian accepted the blame for the food we had secretly eaten. During the outdoor challenge, every man wanted me as a partner because I could cook, but I chose my creditor. Adrian carried my heavy bag, cared for me beneath the sun, and helped me prepare enough fish for everyone. After I exhausted myself racing up a mountain, he carried me down on his back. His warmth and steady strength made my thoughts dangerous, while his attention during dinner made the campsite feel unusually intimate. A game of truth or dare revealed how physically weak I was compared with everyone else, but Adrian pretended to lose an arm wrestling match to protect my pride. That night, Gavin lied that romantic roles could be identified by eye size. Adrian believed that his narrow eyes made him receptive, while my large eyes made me dominant. I misunderstood his words as a confession about his physical ability and comforted him by saying that size did not matter. When he praised mine for being the largest in the group, the two of us completed another conversation without understanding each other at all. After escaping the tent, I overheard a call from Ryan. He was honorably refusing an order from his company to harm Liam, and he intended to leave the agency and establish a business of his own. I realized that this could become my perfect opportunity to secure a future and escape the control of the Sterling family. While I was making plans, Liam arrived with porridge. Our pleasant conversation ended quickly when his vicious manager appeared. Hidden around a corner, I watched the man insult Liam and pressure him to take intimate photographs with Gavin, so that the company could manufacture a scandal. Liam trembled but remained determined to protect the man he loved. My sense of justice erupted. Without thinking, I threw the bowl of porridge into the manager's face and followed it with a powerful punch to his stomach. I told Liam not to fear him. I promised to handle the contract penalty and assured him that he would eventually obtain the good life he deserved. I pulled Liam toward a safe area at full speed. I told myself that I was saving another person and protecting my own conscience at the same time. Deeply moved, Liam embraced me. The unusual emotion in his eyes made my skin prickle when he said that no one had ever treated him so well. I relaxed when I realized that he had not misunderstood my affection and only wanted to become my sworn brother. Then he added a meaningful statement. He did not like people who were smaller than him. He preferred someone larger. Once again, I could not determine whether he meant age or something entirely different. While we were still embracing, Gavin roared like a husband discovering an unfaithful wife. He demanded to know what we were doing. After Liam and I released each other, Adrian continued watching me with an icy gaze that sent chills along my spine. I gathered my courage and asked why he kept staring at me. He turned away without answering, leaving me to conclude that the thoughts of a famous actor were more difficult to understand than the plot of an action film. During the next farm challenge, Gavin displayed his body to attract Liam, but Adrian returned in a sleeveless shirt and immediately stole all my attention. I insisted that I did not care about his appearance while blood flowed from my nose. The humiliation became worse when an elderly doctor announced that excessive desire had caused the problem. Adrian later found a hungry post on my social media page and secretly bought food for the entire crew. His assistant, Harry, tried to discover the worry I was hiding about my false identity, but loud music made him misunderstand my words. He reported that I wanted to end my innocence as soon as possible. Adrian carefully advised me not to rush, while I believed he was speaking about my identity. Neither of us understood the other, and both of us spent the evening in complete embarrassment. The next morning, a sweet cake decorating challenge began. Because of a disastrous mistake by a staff member, the secret missions contained far more excitement than anyone expected. I relaxed when I learned that my task only required me to spread cream across my partner's face. Adrian, however, received a shocking command. He had to call me husband. At the bakery, Gavin seized another chance to boast about his maturity through suggestive numbers. My face burned, while Adrian remained as innocent as a blank sheet and asked what those numbers meant. I could only remain silent. When we began smoothing the uneven frosting, Adrian struggled to control the cake stand. I had to stand directly behind him, take his hand, and guide the rotating platform with him. As warmth passed between us, Adrian seemed to forget the cake. He stared at the side of my face and silently decided that I looked sweeter than the frosting. To complete my mission, I secretly placed a small spot of cream on his nose and laughed with satisfaction. I told him that he had fallen into my trap. Adrian chased me for revenge, and I finally surrendered my face. He gently touched cream to my nose and carefully wiped it away. The intimate position made my heart race as if an entire herd of deer were running through my chest. I blushed and ordered him to continue decorating the cake so that I could hide my confusion. Just as I was beginning to dream about his gentleness, Adrian leaned close to my ear and spoke a sentence that shook my entire world. "Husband, you are truly talented." My body trembled. Every romantic thought vanished, leaving only complete shock at the astonishing name he had used. That afternoon, our plans for the hot spring changed when all the other men had urgent matters to handle. Only Liam and I remained to enjoy the warm water. When I saw the firm muscles hidden beneath his slender appearance, I felt insecure and squeezed my own arm. My heart tightened as Liam described his difficult childhood near a scrap yard. If he had not trained his body, the other children would have bullied him. Emotion almost made me reveal the truth about his identity, but a disturbance interrupted us. His aggressive manager, Leo Harris, arrived with several men and announced that he was taking Liam away because Liam had rejected the company's filthy demands. Hannah bravely attempted to stop them. When I saw the danger, I gathered my courage, stepped forward, and used my body as a shield in front of my friend. I demanded to know who would dare touch him and asked whether they understood who I was. Leo mocked my title as the young heir of the Sterling family. I immediately used my greatest talent for creating a dramatic scene. I told him that he was wrong. I was a person suffering from dangerously low blood sugar. If he dared to touch me, the least serious result would be mental confusion, while the worst would be vomiting blood and collapsing at his feet. I deliberately wasted time and challenged him to strike me so that I could fall to the floor and begin my performance. Leo did not dare offend my family, but he changed his attack and demanded that Liam immediately pay a contract penalty of 5 million yuan. The number made my heart tighten. I did not know whether my supposed father would spend so much to rescue my friend, or whether I would be forced to reveal the final secret of our identities. At the most dangerous moment, Ryan appeared like a savior. He firmly announced that he would pay the money and free Liam from the corrupt company. I breathed with relief and thanked fate because the plot had finally returned to its proper direction, allowing my unfortunate friend to escape. After the furious manager left, Ryan asked to speak with Liam in private about joining his new studio. I immediately raised my ears and secretly followed them. I knew that this was a rare opportunity to offer myself as an artist for his company. I told myself that if I could find a path forward and secure stable work before the storm surrounding my identity arrived, I would possess enough courage to face everything and return the position that truly belonged to Liam. I stood nearby and listened as Ryan sincerely invited Liam to join his new studio. I deeply admired his honor. When Liam hesitated because of the fear left by his former agency, I encouraged him. I said that finding a new company was the best choice and assured him that Ryan was completely trustworthy. With my support, Liam finally accepted the invitation. After Liam left, I gathered all my courage and returned to Ryan. I clasped my hands together in nervous anticipation and asked whether I could apply to become an artist in his studio. His first response disappointed me. He believed that my bone structure was unsuitable for modeling. Then he suggested that my sweet voice might make me a successful singer. Hope returned, and I agreed to prepare a song so that he could evaluate me that evening. To impress my future employer, I personally prepared a magnificent dinner. Ryan praised me generously and said that if I did not become an artist, I could easily become a 5-star chef. After dinner, I held a guitar and sang in a clear and gentle voice. Ryan watched me with complete fascination. As the final note faded, a crash sounded near the door. I turned in shock and discovered that Adrian had been standing there. The objects in his hands had fallen across the floor. Ryan innocently invited him to join us. He asked whether Adrian had eaten and praised my cooking. I hurried over to gather Adrian's belongings, but a chill moved along my spine when I saw an expression like a volcano preparing to erupt. His gaze toward Ryan carried unmistakable danger. I did not understand why Adrian had become silent and cold from the moment he returned. When he carried everything upstairs without a word, I anxiously abandoned Ryan and followed him. I asked what was wrong and whether he felt ill. The cold and noble film star was secretly jealous. He had carefully brought me expensive instant noodles that cost 150 yuan for each package. Instead of receiving a warm welcome, he had entered the room and found me singing and smiling for another man. He claimed that nothing was wrong, but when I prepared to return downstairs and eat with Ryan, he stopped me with a grave expression. He reminded me that he had brought the noodles I liked and suggested that I cook them. He emphasized that they were extremely expensive and that I could not share them with anyone else. In truth, he only wanted to prevent his romantic rival from enjoying my work. While Adrian showered and tried to calm the unfamiliar anxiety of a man falling in love for the first time, I searched for the price of the noodles and nearly fainted. I told myself that I could afford to taste only one strand at a time. Late that night, the two of us ate the expensive noodles together. The air became strangely intimate. Adrian casually made a suggestion that caused my heart to race. If I could not finish my portion, I could place the rest in his bowl. How could a man so concerned with cleanliness agree to eat my leftovers? While my heart floated with happiness, a message arrived confirming that Ryan's studio had accepted me. I became extremely excited and announced that I would change teams the next day so that we could discuss work. Adrian maintained his calm exterior, but a violent storm must have been rising inside him. At a pottery workshop, Adrian became jealous of Ryan and created small injuries so that I would feed and care for him. During a photograph session, the director forced us closer until I sat on Adrian's lap with his hand around my waist. His gaze made my heart race, and later I celebrated when he secretly followed my new social media account. That evening, we shared a romantic room filled with roses. Adrian attempted to show me amusing pictures sent by Gavin, but intimate images appeared instead and nearly destroyed his innocent soul. Late that night, I finally asked whether we were friends. Adrian said that of course we were and asked what else I imagined us to be. His answer brought relief and an unexpected trace of disappointment. When we returned to the villa the next morning, I overheard the director, Luke Morgan, tell Adrian something that made my entire body cold. He revealed that Ethan Sterling had shamelessly forced his way onto the show because he wanted to pursue Gavin Grant. Adrian's face became cold enough to freeze the air. I knew that my life was over. Why had this old scandal been uncovered at exactly this moment? The problem came from an old audio recording. Adrian immediately demanded that it be deleted because he did not want it to harm Liam or me. Even so, the coldness surrounding him sent chills along my spine for the rest of the morning. When I asked whether he was all right, he stood like a statue and avoided the question. He examined Gavin as if trying to understand why I had once liked someone so violent and foolish instead of a perfect man like him. During our trip to the beach, the atmosphere became lively when Ryan handed me a guitar and asked me to sing. Everyone pressured me until I sat beside Gavin and performed a romantic song with him. The audience praised us as a perfectly matched couple. Adrian sat nearby with a face as dark as a burned pot. The dangerous energy surrounding him made everyone tremble. My throat became dry, but Gavin continued playing the guitar because he wanted to impress Liam. I became so irritated that I silently promised to add a special ingredient to his next bowl of food. As we left the vehicle, I choked and accidentally sprayed a mouthful of water across Gavin. When he roared, I immediately adopted my most innocent and manipulative voice. I called him generous and asked whether he could truly be offended by a little water. Then I claimed that if he was angry, everything had to be my fault. At the beach, Gavin and I continued throwing water and sand at each other like children. Adrian stood in the shade and drowned in jealousy because he believed that I still held feelings for his closest friend. Only when Hannah quietly reminded him that I could not swim did he hurry to change his clothes and claim the position of my teacher. In the water, I was struggling with a small turtle float when Adrian suddenly stopped moving and disappeared beneath the surface after displaying his powerful swimming skills. Memories of an earlier tragedy filled me with terror. With the crew, I dragged him onto the shore while tears covered my face. I begged Adrian not to frighten me. When he remained motionless, I gathered my courage and lowered my face to perform rescue breathing. The instant my lips touched his soft mouth, The innocent and powerful man opened his eyes and stared at me. I fell backward onto the sand in complete humiliation. My heart seemed ready to explode as I asked whether he was awake. Adrian remained frozen. His empty eyes suggested that his soul had left his body. The first kiss he had protected for 25 years had vanished without warning. The laughing crew explained that it had only been a small prank designed to enliven the show. Fear and anger rose inside me until my legs would not stop trembling. Unable to endure any more, I wiped my tears and demanded to know why they had treated a human life as a joke. I told them that nothing about it was amusing. Then I ignored Adrian calling my name and ran away from the swimming area. I feared that if I remained for one more second, I would begin sobbing in front of the cameras. While wandering across the sand with my emotions in chaos, I encountered Gavin. My usual enemy behaved with surprising kindness. He gave me 2 expensive frozen treats because he feared that if Liam saw me unhappy, Liam would become unhappy too. The luxurious food immediately improved my mood. Even so, I felt disappointed when everyone came to comfort me except Adrian. I mocked myself. I was the one who had turned away first, so why did I still expect him to follow and comfort me? Adrian was not indifferent. He watched from a distance while Gavin cared for me, and jealousy filled his heart. He even spent an enormous amount of money to invite the entire crew to a luxurious seafood dinner. He wanted to apologize and give me time to recover. Inside a private room at the restaurant, the atmosphere between us remained so cold that Gavin had to push Adrian toward me. Then he locked the door and forced us to resolve the matter alone. I faced the distant actor in the silent room and gathered my courage to speak. To my surprise, both of us apologized at exactly the same moment. We stared at each other, then both asked why the other person was apologizing when neither had done anything wrong. Our eyes met, and all the earlier awkwardness disappeared. I sincerely apologized for losing my temper and running away. Adrian invited me to select dishes with him as his own apology. When I saw the fresh seafood and the outrageous price of several thousand yuan for each portion, pain passed through my body. I thought that inexpensive food from a street stall would be far better. Adrian silenced me by pointing out that the seafood was still cheap compared with the watch worth millions that I had destroyed. After the alcohol began affecting me during dinner, my cowardly but playful nature emerged. I embraced the bottle, talked nonsense, and forced Ryan and Liam to restrain me. Although I was drunk, I continued eating as much as possible so that we would recover the value of the expensive meal. When Adrian saw me struggling, he pulled my chair closer and told me that he would not scold me. He would peel the seafood and feed me. He hardly ate anything for the rest of the meal and devoted himself to serving the greedy kitten beside him. Meanwhile, Gavin pretended to be drunk so that Liam would care for him, which made Adrian want to throw his troublesome friend out of sight. After dinner, Adrian carried my completely intoxicated body into the vehicle and carefully cleaned my face. I stared at him through the fog of alcohol and made an astonishing statement. I said that I remembered him as the man with the beautiful curved backside from the bar. When he sighed, I continued speaking without shame. I called myself a delinquent youth because I had suffered from poor nutrition during high school. Adrian bitterly asked whether I liked Gavin. I declared that he could question my character but could not question my taste. A man who could not win a single game did not interest me at all. Happiness bloomed inside Adrian. He asked what kind of person I did like. I tilted my head, looked directly at him, and said that I naturally liked someone like him. He was beautiful enough to blind me. I did not stop there. I boldly wrapped my arms around his waist and gave him a provocative smile. I called him handsome and asked whether he wanted to try an adult romance with me. I had never seen Adrian so confused. Sweat covered his palms, and his face burned as if his heart had reached its greatest possible speed under my drunken confession. His reason warned him to think carefully, but his mouth betrayed him and agreed. The moment he accepted, I collapsed against his shoulder and fell asleep again. Adrian became so frustrated that he wanted to strike Gavin 500 times for giving me alcohol. While I slept, Adrian's mother called in a state of overwhelming excitement after hearing that her son had lost his first kiss. She immediately decided that I was her future son and prepared to travel to the set that very night, ignoring every attempt to stop her. I slept for 2 hours. When I opened my eyes, Adrian sat beside me and demanded to know whether I remembered what I had said. I became completely confused because I could not remember a single word. The tension had barely formed when his mother burst into the room with a dramatic entrance. She announced that heaven had thundered, his shining mother had arrived, and her son needed to open the door. She slipped into the room with astonishing speed, seized my hand, and performed like an actress in an epic film. She said that she had never seen anyone so lovely. I did not resemble the son of the Sterling family at all. I looked more like the future son of the Hawthorne family. My heart nearly stopped because I feared that she had discovered my false identity. Instead, she was simply desperate to bring us together. Before leaving, she generously announced that she was giving her tall and handsome son to me. She also hid an enormous gold bracelet beneath my pillow. Adrian forced me to accept the expensive gift. He warned that if I returned it, his mother would crawl back in a dark and twisted mood to demand payment. Trembling, I placed the bracelet inside my bag. That evening after filming, Adrian called me aside with a mysterious expression. He told me to wait because he had a large treasure to show me. He led me into the room through an extremely suggestive atmosphere. Then he touched his belt and ordered me to close my eyes. He promised that when I opened them, I would receive a surprise. My heart seemed ready to leap from my chest. What extraordinary treasure did the famous actor intend to reveal in this private space? I wanted to slap my filthy soul awake. Instead of displaying anything shocking, Adrian removed a small scented pouch shaped like a cat from his belt. A fat cat suddenly rushed into my arms. Adrian lifted it by the back of the neck and introduced it as cream cake. Medical treatment had caused the cat to gain weight through hormonal changes. I could not resist its round and lazy appearance. I buried my face in its fur with such enthusiasm that Adrian's eyes softened. I said that it was incredibly adorable. He told me that if I liked cream cake, the cat could remain in my room. I became delighted because I would now have a royal master to serve every day. Cream cake was not an easy ruler. Angry about being placed on a diet, the cat deliberately relieved itself on my bed as revenge. When Adrian saw the wet battlefield across the mattress, his face turned purple with anger, and he prepared to remove the animal. I softened and stopped him. Adrian suddenly became unusually generous and suggested that I sleep in his bed that night. We lay together without any barrier between us. In the dim golden light, I studied his extraordinary face and silently regretted the supposed imperfection of his masculine ability. Adrian unexpectedly praised my eyes and compared them to beautiful pearls. Then he added a sentence that made me pull the blanket over my head in shame. He said that larger ones truly were more attractive. The next morning, my father, Marcus Sterling, unexpectedly visited the set. He brought many expensive designer gifts and filled me with guilt. That guilt became stronger when he warmly praised Liam and said that he wished the young man were his own son. I gathered my courage to reveal the truth, but Marcus had to leave immediately for a business trip. Liam innocently invited me to visit his grandfather at the scrap yard after the show ended. The old man possessed a special object that could become the key to returning Liam's true identity in the gentlest possible way. After Marcus left, Hannah gave us another set of stimulating secret missions. Adrian received a card ordering him to hold his partner beneath him while completing 100 push-ups. His calm expression immediately became calculating. I looked at my own card and nearly fainted. I had to replace my partner's underwear with a pink pair. This time, the program displayed extraordinary cunning by openly announcing that every secret challenge involved physical contact. Every mission appeared on the large screen so that the audience could supervise us. The moment I read the order to secretly replace my partner's underwear with a pink pair, I nearly fainted. The live stream audience laughed and called me the unfortunate little guest. To avoid embarrassment with Adrian, I insisted on exchanging partners with Liam. Adrian's face froze, while Gavin shouted in protest. Inside the changing room, I was nervously reaching into Liam's cabinet when Adrian unexpectedly entered. I jumped and immediately buried myself with a foolish explanation. I told him that the situation was not what he imagined and that I had not come there to steal Liam's underwear. Adrian answered my panic with a meaningful sentence. He said that he trusted me and that I could continue while he waited outside. On the badminton court, I became trapped in a deadly battle between Adrian and Gavin. Meanwhile, Liam gently helped me stretch and praised my narrow waist. He said that I looked like a small cat. During the official match, Adrian showed enough mercy to fill an ocean, but my excessive enthusiasm caused me to twist my ankle. He immediately threw away his racket, ran toward me, and lifted me with unmistakable possession. He ordered me not to move and said that he would carry me to the vehicle. I rested my head against his shoulder and breathed his masculine fragrance. Then I bravely leaned close to his ear and explained the misunderstanding. I told him that the incident in the changing room had been my secret mission and begged him not to tell Hannah. My warm breath made the innocent actor blush completely. His heart raced with confusion. That evening, Adrian carried me home and cared for me with complete attention. Then Gavin accidentally revealed a shocking truth. His claim that romantic roles could be identified through the size of a person's eyes had been a complete lie. Adrian finally understood that his closest friend had deceived him. I had already praised him for being large and advised him to consult a doctor. The famous actor's face changed from green to purple. Through clenched teeth, he stared at Gavin and accused him of lying. I did not know whether to laugh or cry as Adrian absorbed the truth about dominant and receptive roles. One moment he appeared empty and stunned. The next he became furious because Gavin had made him suffer through such an embarrassing deception. I remained silent while Adrian dragged his friend into the bathroom and completed a violent private settlement. When he emerged, a mask and sunglasses covered nearly his entire face. He appeared unable to face me. I anxiously asked whether he was all right. He gave one cold answer and said that nothing was wrong. Then he passed me like the wind, returned to our room, and directed his anger toward the innocent cat, Cream Cake. That night, the tension in our room became so intense that I barely dared to breathe. Adrian suddenly blushed and asked whether I believed something was wrong with his health. Assuming he had a fever, I hurried to prepare medicine. Instead, the famous actor accidentally drank powerful liquor that the dance teacher had hidden inside a soft drink bottle. The alcohol destroyed his restraint. He turned off the live stream equipment, seized my shoulders, and looked at me with blazing eyes. He announced that he had something extremely serious to tell me. He was not receptive. Gavin had deceived him by claiming that eye size could reveal a person's romantic role. The reason was so ridiculous that I laughed. Adrian exploded with embarrassed anger and ordered me not to laugh. He repeated that Gavin had deceived him, then loudly declared that Adrian Hawthorne was extremely large. I fell completely silent before the confident announcement of the drunken star. I thanked heaven that he had turned off the camera and protected the last of his dignity. The matter did not end there. When I seemed unconvinced, Adrian began removing his belt with fierce determination. He asked whether I doubted him and announced that he would force me to witness the truth with my own eyes. I stared at his bold actions and felt my heart leap with fear. I told him that no proof was necessary and promised that I believed him. I held his hands and silently screamed that such a treasure was not something I could casually inspect. Adrian remained impossibly stubborn. He behaved as if failure to prove his masculinity at that moment would create a regret lasting for eternity. He pressed me to the floor and reached for his belt. At exactly that moment, Gavin opened the door. He froze for 5 seconds before demanding to know what we were doing. I jumped up and begged him for help. I asked him to stop the drunken actor before Adrian completely lost his mind. Fortunately, Gavin retained enough reason to help me place the man on the bed, although Adrian continued insisting that he was not drunk. I ran to find medicine for the effects of alcohol and told the director that Adrian had developed a fever. I wanted to protect his cold and noble image. As I looked at his perfect sleeping face, I felt both amused and saddened by the innocence that had allowed him to believe Gavin's ridiculous story. I secretly took several photographs as keepsakes. I told myself that I would treasure them during the future days when I was no longer the heir of the Sterling family. When Adrian woke with a headache, he anxiously asked whether he had done anything inappropriate. I suppressed my laughter and teased him. I said that nothing serious had happened. He had merely demanded to perform a dance without clothing. His horrified face and the way he frantically examined his clothes made me want to laugh aloud. His unexpected innocence was far too charming. That afternoon, the entire cast performed a dance routine. I witnessed Adrian moving as stiffly as a robot attempting exercise, while I danced with so much enthusiasm that the instructor shouted that she wanted to become my mother. I did not know whether to laugh or cry because everyone seemed determined to adopt me. That evening at a karaoke room, I mistakenly drank another alcoholic soft drink. Dizzy, I selected a passionate song and danced provocatively toward Adrian. Under everyone's astonished gaze, I sat directly on his lap. My finger moved across his lips and stopped against the movement of his throat. The room became tense and intensely intimate. Adrian's body turned as rigid as wood. Both his fists tightened beneath my drunken attack. I wrapped my arms around his neck and brought my face so close that our eyelashes touched. The alcohol gave me a seductive appearance completely different from my usual self. The entire room became silent. Everyone held their breath and waited for a shocking kiss. Instead, I collapsed and fell asleep in his arms. The disappointed actor carried me back to the room. As he quietly cleaned my face beside the bed, he whispered that I was adorable. He even brought cream cake closer and asked the cat whether I could become its other father. Inside Adrian's heart, every intimate moment from the beach to my passionate dance had already confirmed that we were a true couple. A challenge at a cat cafe revealed Adrian's jealousy when I exchanged contact information with the manager. Our victory brought a secret cat-made costume, and Adrian insisted that only he could see me wear it. At a private dinner, I wore the costume and asked whether I was beautiful. Adrian said that I was, then invited me to join his company. I refused because I wanted to succeed through my own effort and one day stand beside him with confidence. He promised that if I ever became unable to continue, he would become my final place of safety. An urgent assignment forced Adrian to leave the country earlier than expected. Before departing, he held me tightly and asked me to wait for him. The show paused filming, while Liam and I signed with Ryan's studio. I returned home with cream cake and tried to endure how deeply I missed Adrian. While I repeatedly wrote and deleted a message, Adrian contacted me first and asked what I was doing. I became so excited that my hands trembled. I immediately sent him a picture of the cat, which led to our first video call. Adrian's perfect face appeared on the screen. His open shirt revealed his elegant collarbones, and I secretly activated the recording function in private shame. His deep voice made my heart race. He said that he did not want to see the cat. He wanted to see me. Once he began working on a confidential project, using his phone would become difficult. He asked us to make a video call every day before then because he wanted to see me. During the following days, I threw myself into training and unexpectedly received the leading role in an online drama with a ridiculous but irresistible title. The runaway husband escapes 99 times. The wicked president loves me too much. Unfortunately, I had to play the delicate little husband beside a powerful president portrayed by Liam, who was far taller than me. When I asked Derek Young why I had received that role, he delivered a judgment that destroyed my confidence. Liam was taller, so if I played the president, would I stand on my toes every time I kissed him? During our video call that night, Adrian sensitively asked whether the new script contained a kissing scene. My mischievous nature appeared, and I teased him by claiming that the story contained 18 kisses. When he became speechless, I laughed and said that there were no kisses. Then I added another shock. The drama contained 2 scenes without clothing. Adrian's face became rigid through the screen. I knew that I had reached directly into the jar holding all his jealousy. In truth, I had only been teasing him. A small online production contained no real kisses or undressed scenes. After comforting Adrian, I studied the script until I forgot to eat and sleep. Fortunately, I won the role during my first audition. Adrian sent an image of a hand gently touching my head, and I felt as if I were floating through the clouds. Joining the production led by the young and passionate director Chloe Hart helped me relax. Then bad luck caused us to encounter the arrogant cast of Tyler Howard at a restaurant. Tyler used his reputation to insult Liam, calling him a social climber who depended on the Grant family. My heroic blood boiled. I stood in front of my friend and returned the insult. I asked whether sleeping with other people was the reason Tyler could afford beautiful clothes. I said that he must possess great talent in that area, because anyone willing to sleep with a face like his had to possess an extremely unusual taste. When he turned purple and prepared to attack, I displayed the new fruit knife I had purchased. Tyler and his assistant immediately retreated and escaped. That evening brought a classic humiliation. Tyler proudly displayed his small advertisement outside the restaurant when a sudden wave of excitement rose through the street. I ran to the balcony and froze. The tallest and most expensive tower in the city displayed an enormous image of me with a signature from Cream Cake. My hands trembled as I called Adrian and asked whether he had arranged it. He joked that he had done nothing. Cream Cake had taken a second job at the Cat Cafe and saved enough money to buy the gift. When the director told me that the display cost 100 million yuan each month, I nearly fainted from the pain. I asked how long Adrian had purchased it and whether we could request a refund. He answered as if nothing unusual had happened. It had only been purchased for 2 months, and the money had already been transferred. My soul seemed to leave my body when I saw the total appear in the news. 200 million yuan. I sat on a chair with an empty mind and silently counted the zeros. Liam worriedly poured water for me, while I tried not to cry. I asked whether calling a consumer complaint line could still recover the money. My original debt of 5 million had now increased to 205 million yuan. Only offering my entire body could possibly repay an amount so enormous. Director Chloe celebrated because our drama had become famous before filming began. I faced a wave of hateful attacks from fake accounts hired by Tyler, which accused me of being calculating and greedy. The filthy comments became so dense that my fingers trembled. Fortunately, Ryan called to reassure me. He revealed Adrian's astonishing income, 50 million yuan for a single episode. The information reduced my pain but also forced me to recognize the enormous distance between us. Although he was abroad, Adrian personally published a correction. He explained that he had purchased the advertisement under Cream Cake's name as a gift for me, his good friend. The paid attackers fell silent, while the fans screamed at his obvious affection. The next day, I arrived at the production with dark circles beneath my eyes and met our new acting coach, Victor Hawthorne. He immediately held my wrist, examined my pulse, and announced that my complexion looked slightly weak. To protect the last of my dignity, I boldly invented a story. I insisted that I was not weak and had merely become tired after battling 8 breathtaking beauties throughout the previous night. Victor raised an eyebrow and commented that I must possess impressive ability. As I celebrated my successful lie, Ryan rushed over and introduced us in a trembling voice. He told me to stop standing there and respectfully greet Mr. Victor Hawthorne, Adrian's father. I nearly collapsed. I wanted a hole to open so that I could escape the humiliation. In a tiny voice, I apologized to Victor and explained that I had only been joking. I begged him not to be offended. During my first meeting with Adrian's father, I had boasted about spending a night with 8 beauties. Every fragment of my innocent image had vanished. Victor only smiled and said that young people enjoyed making jokes. Even so, his gaze sent a chill along my back because I feared that he now considered me shameless. Ryan made the situation worse by praising my pure nature, which only increased the irony. Inside the vehicle taking us to the filming location, the silence became difficult to breathe through. Gavin called and flattered Victor while also mocking me as a person who stared suspiciously at Liam. I became furious but could not defend myself. Victor focused all his warmth on Liam because he believed that young man would become his future son. A small disappointment touched me. An encounter with Tyler's production at the hotel returned my attention to the present. When Tyler arrogantly attempted to drive Cream Cake away, I mocked him. I said that if the hotel refused to admit animals, Tyler would not be allowed inside either. The royal cat cooperated perfectly and released a terrible smell inside the elevator as revenge. Tyler's cruelty did not end there. While I was absent, his assistant entered the room with a knife and attempted to harm Cream Cake. Then they reversed the truth and released false evidence accusing me of using the cat to attack people. They intended to destroy my reputation. Fortunately, Adrian had secretly placed a camera on Cream Cake's collar. The recording provided complete proof of the truth. Relief and gratitude filled me. I decided to shower and remove the exhaustion and dirt left by the long day. I innocently removed my clothes and stood beneath the cool water without knowing that Adrian was frozen at the other end of the camera connection. His breathing became rapid as the hidden camera accidentally revealed my entire body before he could disable it. Adrian stood like stone while my pale skin moved beneath the water. He accused himself of having no dignity, but his eyes remained on the screen until an intimate area entered the image. Then he panicked and turned off the connection. Harry stared in horror when his employer suddenly suffered a nosebleed outside the conference room. Meanwhile, Victor used his influence to resolve the conflict with Tyler. Tyler had to apologize and pay 50 million yuan in compensation to avoid further punishment. His protection surprised and moved both Liam and me. Fans celebrated the sweetness and declared that the presence of Cream Cake proved we already belonged to one family. Our happiness remained incomplete. Tyler's insults about Liam's life as an orphan left him deeply depressed. So I purchased a large amount of food and tried to comfort him. We sat on the balcony and shared our worries. Liam became drunk and cried because he feared that everyone he loved would eventually leave him. While I struggled to respond, Gavin appeared like a god and rushed forward to hold him tightly. I watched the sweet scene, silently wished them happiness, and slipped away so that the young couple could remain alone. Then I returned to my empty room and felt overwhelming loneliness. Beneath the dim light, I buried my face in a pillow and longed for warm arms around me. My phone suddenly vibrated. Adrian's low and gentle voice called my name. My nose burned, and every effort to remain strong disappeared. Like a person affected by alcohol, I allowed myself to act sweetly. I claimed that I was not unhappy. I only wanted him to hold me. After those words escaped, I wanted to slap my shameless face. Deep in my heart, however, I anxiously waited for his answer. After several suffocating seconds of silence, Adrian hesitantly asked whether I had been drinking again. I accepted the excuse and admitted that I had, hiding my embarrassment despite a small disappointment. I ended the call quickly because I feared that I might begin to cry. A knock sounded at the door. Someone delivered an enormous stuffed bear with a warm message from Adrian. The message said that the bear would hold me in his place and wished me a peaceful night. I embraced the bear. His gentle care seemed to move through every thread and carried me into calm sleep after many exhausting days. The next morning, my spirit improved when the compensation from Tyler appeared in my account. I became wealthy enough to build a small reserve and resolve the matter of Liam's true identity. Even so, my path as an actor still contained many storms. The journey of two inexperienced performers proved more difficult than expected beneath Victor's strict supervision. He criticized our acting as stiff and suddenly asked a question that left me confused. He said that I needed to display shyness and should imagine Liam as the person I loved. Then he asked whether such a person existed in my life. I quietly admitted that someone did. That evening, I called Adrian and asked him to become my private teacher. He laughed gently and suggested that I imagine my scene partner as the person in my dreams. His advice greatly improved my shy performance. Our feelings also became closer through the video calls we shared every day. Liam's grandfather suddenly became seriously ill, forcing us to return to the city immediately. At that exact moment, Marcus called and said that he wanted to visit. I understood that the destined hour had arrived. The keepsake proving Liam's true identity would soon return to the light. In the parking area, Marcus embraced me warmly and proudly displayed a vehicle filled with gifts. My eyes burned because I had once greedily wanted to keep this fatherly love for myself. Then I remembered everything Liam had suffered. I wiped away my tears and firmly led Marcus toward the hospital room. I asked him to come upstairs and visit one of my friends. Outside the emergency room, Liam's grandfather remained in critical danger. I silently comforted Liam until Gavin arrived to stand beside him. My father gently took me home. Within that warm and familiar space, I hesitantly asked what he thought about Liam. When Marcus praised him, I felt moved by my father's protection and heartbroken because I knew that I was only a replacement enjoying warmth that should have belonged to someone else. Marcus noticed my change. He gently promised to support my dream. I told him that I had once behaved without understanding, but I would not continue making the same mistakes. When he unexpectedly mentioned Adrian, I became confused and hurried to claim that we were friends. When Marcus questioned my true feelings, I quietly denied that anything existed between us. After returning to the production, I was surprised to meet Adrian's open-minded mother, Olivia Hawthorne. She laughed and asked what could be wrong with speaking to her future son. During the following days, Olivia seemed able to understand my hidden heart. She encouraged me to pursue love bravely through a playful promise. If I truly feared the difference between our families, she could force Adrian to leave with nothing. Then he would become a poor man unworthy of me. My face became red as I protested. I asked why she continued mentioning him when I had not been talking about Adrian at all. The day Liam brought out the keepsake from his childhood, I understood that the truth was approaching. I asked what he was holding and examined the small garment decorated with golden thread. I encouraged him to search for his origins. I told him that the golden thread was certainly real and proved that his parents must have loved him deeply. I said that I understood his fears, but the past might not be what he imagined. Once he found his parents, he should listen to their explanation. To bring Liam and Marcus together, I carefully instructed him to take the keepsake to my father during the autumn festival. Then I quietly left and hid inside a narrow rented room so that I could make space for a reunion that did not belong to me. Sitting alone in that small room, I purchased a tiny cake and celebrated my birthday. I had always treated the autumn festival as the day I was born. On the large screen outside the shopping center, Adrian shone at an international awards ceremony. He looked like a god, filling me with pride while also making me feel very small. At the loneliest moment, I took cream cake downstairs. Brilliant fireworks covered the sky, and a familiar deep voice called my name. I turned in disbelief. The man who had appeared on a screen thousands of miles away now stood directly before me. Adrian gently said that he had come to take me home for the autumn festival. I remained dazed inside Adrian's luxurious vehicle. At the Sterling home, a suffocating atmosphere surrounded Liam and Marcus as they faced the results of a family test. When the truth appeared, Liam displayed a painful calm. He asked everyone not to tell me. He preferred to continue suffering under the name of an orphan rather than force me to face a cruel truth during the festival. Marcus collapsed emotionally. The love he had given me for so many years remained too deep, and he could not drive his adopted child toward despair. When Cream Cake saw my sadness, the royal cat became a matchmaker. It bit Adrian's hand and placed it over mine with clear intention. Adrian gently touched the back of my hand and reminded me that it was the autumn festival. He said that I needed to be happy. Then he pulled me into a protective embrace that felt like a promise to shelter me for the rest of my life. Every hidden grievance dissolved. I buried myself against him and cried until my heart became lighter. At the Hawthorne Villa, Olivia welcomed me with such enthusiasm that she offered to adopt me as a younger brother so that she could become younger herself. In truth, she was secretly arranging a romance between us. She openly claimed that every other room was occupied. Cream Cake cooperated by leaving unpleasant surprises across the house, forcing me to share Adrian's room. With no other choice, I agreed and said that I hoped he would not mind the inconvenience. That evening, the room carried the familiar fragrance of dark wood. We sat together on the bed and explored albums from Adrian's childhood. I felt fortunate to touch those private fragments of his memory. While I concentrated on the photographs, Gavin secretly pulled Adrian into a corner and asked whether he truly intended to share a room with me. Adrian gave an answer that froze his closest friend. He said that he intended to propose to me. Gavin immediately sent the news of Adrian's planned proposal into the family group conversation. I expected Olivia's close friend, Caroline Grant, to become excited. Instead, she behaved with unusual calm and took the two men into the garden for a private discussion. I remained awkwardly trapped beneath the close attention of Gavin's parents. Fortunately, Adrian returned and rescued me. He calmly sat beside me and used the same bowl and utensils, making my face burn. Cream cake gave me a look of complete contempt. That evening, Gavin's parents gave me an enormous red envelope and offered meaningful advice. They told me to care for Adrian well in the future. Adrian led me upstairs to rest. Olivia had prepared one of his large shirts for me to wear. When I emerged from the bathroom, the long shirt left my pale legs completely exposed. The famous actor, known for his perfect restraint, became frozen as if a spell had struck him. His ears turned bright red. While I dried my hair, Adrian wandered around like a man who had lost his soul. His reason and his darker instincts fought a violent battle beside the basket holding my used clothes. Just as his guilty hand moved toward them, I knocked and offered an item he had forgotten. He nearly fell backward and silently condemned himself as a pervert whose thoughts were no longer pure. Concerned by the loud sound, I asked whether he was all right. Adrian opened the door. This time, I became the person frozen in place when my gaze moved toward an area it should never have examined. His thin lounge trousers could not hide the impressive size he had once declared so proudly. Heat covered my body. I stammered and asked whether that was something I was allowed to see. Adrian's mind nearly exploded when he realized exactly where I was looking and how clearly his body had changed. Both of us fell into a pit of unbearable embarrassment. In my confusion, I said something that made me want to cut out my own tongue. I laughed and commented that he seemed unusually energetic. The famous actor's face became dark red as he stammered through an explanation. I escaped from the scene and left him alone to calm himself. That night, I saw him curled up miserably on the sofa as if punishing himself. Unable to endure the sight, I approached and pulled his hand. I asked why he was not sleeping in the bed and reminded him that the sofa had no pillow or blanket. Adrian looked at me with shining eyes that seemed ready to cry. In a deep voice, he defended himself and said that he was not a shameless person. His adorable seriousness made me laugh. I promised that I believed him and pulled him back toward the bed. In the darkness, he comforted my insecurity about my identity through a gentle promise. He said that losing one family did not matter, because someone would give me a new home. The next morning, a true storm began when Liam, Gavin, and Marcus arrived at the Hawthorne home. Instead of driving me away, Marcus embraced me and announced that regardless of the truth, I would always be his son. Nothing could ever change that. The emotional reunion ended when Olivia released a dramatically comic cry that made everyone laugh. The celebration continued noisily until the two gray wolves, Adrian and Gavin, competed to flatter my father and became drunk. Liam and I had to care for them. When I took Adrian into the room and prepared medicine for the alcohol, he suddenly sat up and pointed into empty space. He announced that a dark and wicked little creature had appeared and was telling him to do something terrible. I asked what he intended to do. Adrian stared at me with burning eyes and rushed forward. He said that he had decided to obey the creature and perform an extremely wicked act. I had underestimated the power of the drunken demon inside him. I expected something mature and dangerous. Adrian pressed me onto the bed and pulled away my jacket. Then he hugged the jacket, rolled happily across the mattress, and celebrated his discovery. He announced that it was Ethan's jacket and praised its fragrance. I stared at the cold and noble actor as he behaved like a child who had found candy. He buried his face in my clothes and breathed with complete satisfaction. Even while drunk and encouraged to do something exciting, his honorable nature only demanded one of my jackets. I did not know whether to laugh or cry. I sacrificed the hooded shirt I was wearing and used it to persuade him to take the medicine. Half an hour later, Adrian woke and immediately recovered his dignified appearance. Then he saw himself embracing my soaked clothes and dropped his glass of water in shock. To protect his pride, I claimed that I had covered him with the clothes because I feared he would become cold. He hurriedly removed his own jacket and wrapped it around me. The familiar wooden fragrance surrounded my body and made my heart race. On our journey home, every remaining knot loosened when Liam gently said that he wanted to care for me as a younger brother. I became so moved that I cried. Under Olivia's strange influence, however, my sob turned into a comic animal sound. That ridiculous noise officially confirmed the true brotherly relationship between us. At the Hawthorne home, the innocent and powerful actor completed his shower and held my 2 shirts against his body. He entered an online fan community and attempted to buy a handmade doll. The members mistook him for a minor. To prove that he was an adult, Adrian had to solve a large collection of advanced mathematics problems. His dedication moved the leader of the fan group, who secretly sent him a message. The leader said that because he cared so deeply about Ethan, they would share several private and passionate fan images. He could view them but could never distribute them. The next morning, Adrian's furious shout echoed through the house. He accused his mother of deceiving him. After the fan leader explained the true meaning of the intimate pictures he had once called happy images, Adrian finally understood that Olivia had misled him for a long time. He remembered every occasion when he had casually invited me to view them and wanted to disappear from humiliation. Adrian returned to his room in misery. He shyly examined the passionate pictures fans had created of us and accused himself of corrupting a small angel. Even so, his hands saved every image into a secret album. That evening, I called to remind him about dinner. He immediately hid his embarrassment and adopted his cold manner. Through the screen, he looked deeply into my eyes and encouraged my dream of modeling. He told me not to care about other opinions. If I wanted to try, I should move forward, and he would always support me. Adrian took me to the Hawthorne Company, where we encountered the false and dangerous Felix Quinn. A luxury brand had planned to pair Felix with Adrian for the Dreaming Swans watch campaign, but the representative chose me instead after seeing us together. I accepted because the role offered a chance to protect Liam from a villain in the original story. Afterward, Liam gave me a golden dog that I named Milk Tea. Adrian's parents invented an absurd problem with their house so that he could stay with the Sterling family. Gavin arrived with an equally ridiculous excuse, leaving Liam and me to care for 2 shameless wealthy men. Milk Tea and Cream Cake quickly became close and helped Adrian enter my private room. He supported my dream of modeling, and beneath the evening light we entered our fingerprints into each other's phones. We claimed that the access was for caring for the pets, although it was an act normally shared by lovers. The animals soon exposed our secret albums. Adrian's phone held passionate fan pictures of me, while mine held attractive photographs of him without a shirt. We both pretended to see nothing and punished the guilty pets together like an embarrassed married couple. The next morning, I tasted a strangely shaped steamed bun that Adrian had made with his own hands. He insisted that it resembled cream cake, but every angle made it look like a turtle. I closed my eyes, praised its flavor, and hurried to modeling class. There I met Mason Drake, an elegant and attractive instructor. Ryan had worried about my height, but Mason became extremely interested in my proportions and proposed a bold contrast of styles. He said that such an innocent face naturally belonged with a passionate and seductive image. The contrast would create the strongest impression. Mason moved close enough for his rich perfume to make my face red. A furious voice suddenly called my name. Adrian appeared with danger across his face. He immediately pulled me away from Mason and delivered a warning through a powerful handshake that nearly twisted the instructor's expression. When he saw my swollen feet after a full day of training, Adrian lifted me and carried me to the vehicle without a word. At home, he sat down, gently blew across the painful skin, and applied medicine with complete care. The stinging made me cry out and ask him to use a lighter touch. Gavin happened to pass the room. The accidental sound stopped him, and he pressed his ear against the door with a wicked expression as if listening to an intimate scene. Soon afterward, Liam and Gavin left for a business trip. Their departure made the house feel empty, but it also created an unusual anticipation because Adrian and I were now alone. His gaze toward me became deeper. He even made a suggestive remark that if I became the owner of the house, I would no longer have to travel back and forth so painfully. The next morning, Mason criticized my modeling again and said that I moved like a thief. When Adrian arrived, I showed him the injured expression of a small cat. He touched my head and comforted me with stories about the demanding instructor's own past. My heart became calmer before I faced the next and more revealing challenge that evening. I held a delicate outfit made from thin black silk. Silver chains crossed the open back and revealed almost all of my pale skin. My face burned as I prepared to refuse. Mason criticized my lack of professionalism. He boasted that he did not even close the door when he showered because his body looked impressive, so I had nothing to fear. The statement gave me a dangerous and mistaken confidence. I decided not to lock the bathroom door so that I could prove my courage. While I enjoyed the shower, cream cake and milk tea entered to steal canned food. They accidentally left the door completely open. Adrian was wearing a thin sleeveless shirt as part of his own attempt at seduction. When he saw the open door, he entered because he assumed I was only soaking my feet. He froze at the entrance as I stepped out without clothing. Both of us turned to stone. His eyes remained fixed on my body and his breathing became heavy, while I wanted a black hole to swallow me immediately. Marcus discovered Adrian at the scene in that extremely suspicious situation. The famous actor's face became as red as a tomato. He apologized and explained that he had entered without knocking. I wanted to disappear because of my exposed condition. To escape the embarrassment, Adrian used the excuse of treating my feet with medicine provided by Liam. When he carefully lifted my swollen foot into warm water, my heart softened and every defense disappeared. The romantic moment ended when Marcus stared at Adrian's thin white shirt and offered a meaningful warning. He said that the weather had become cold and such revealing clothing could easily cause illness. Then he told Adrian to return to his room and change. Judged by my father as shameless despite his innocent intentions, Adrian could only leave in misery. He sent me a large collection of crying cat images before he reached his room. Each message attempted to explain that he was not an improper man. I comforted him repeatedly and silently wondered how my famous actor had become so calculating and adorable. Half a month later, after ruthless training and countless sharp remarks from Mason, I received my first opportunity to walk on a real runway during the Harmony Fashion Festival. I remained insecure about my height, but Mason offered powerful encouragement. Presence mattered more than height. I should walk with confidence, and he would carry the responsibility if anything went wrong. I knew that Adrian would sit in the front row to support me. I became determined to perform brilliantly and make him proud. During rehearsal, I wore a seductive outfit that exposed one shoulder and my waist, following the contrasting style Mason had designed for me. My growing confidence created such a stable presence that the organizers nodded with praise. An old shadow returned. Hugo Tanner, the man Adrian had removed from the dating show, stood in the darkness with hatred burning in his eyes. He ordered an assistant to find an opportunity that evening and cut my clothes into pieces. Then we would discover how I planned to enter the runway the following day. Immediately before the show, I became furious when someone found my performance costume destroyed. Mason was so angry that he laughed coldly and attacked the organizers with cutting words. He asked whether they were insulting him or insulting Ethan. How could a new collection contain only one sample of its most important design? Their confusion left me disappointed and ready to surrender. I suggested that we abandon the appearance. Mason refused. If I retreated this time, the same people would dare to destroy a second and third outfit in the future. While the organizers desperately searched for a replacement, Adrian appeared like a guardian. He did not create a public scene with the staff. He directly called the president of the Harmony Group. The highest executive issued an immediate command. Every other model could remain off the runway if necessary, but Adrian's friend had to appear. Through that powerful intervention, I instantly became the most important person at the event. Ryan investigated and discovered that Hugo was responsible. My old enemy now worked as a manager for the event. While I waited for another outfit, I overheard a shocking conversation between Adrian, Ryan, and Mason. The two older men had secretly loved each other for years and planned to marry. Mason even taught Adrian 2 methods for ending his single life. The first was to make me jealous. The second was to give me alcohol and create an irreversible situation. The honorable actor immediately rejected the second suggestion. How could he do such a thing without my permission? His serious expression warmed my heart and made me laugh. The replacement outfit finally arrived, but it nearly made me faint again. The design had originally been created for a woman and had been altered in great haste. It hardly resembled clothing and looked more like several bold strips of fabric wrapped around my body. Mason ordered me to change quickly because only 1 hour remained before the show. In the audience, Gavin did not waste the opportunity to tease Adrian. He pointed out my revealing clothes and suggested that Adrian must feel uncomfortable. Adrian maintained a calm expression. He said that he did not restrict my freedom and that the outfit was required for work. 1 second later, Gavin screamed because Adrian squeezed his hand so hard that it nearly broke. Gavin complained that Adrian had claimed not to care, yet was directing all his anger into Gavin's fingers. Before the show, Liam and Marcus struggled with a camera like parents attending a school performance. Adrian immediately spent tens of millions on a professional team to capture every moment of my appearance. Mason teased him and predicted that my admirers would form a line extending all the way to France after the show. Adrian stood nearby with an expression as sour as vinegar. The music began, and I entered in the boldly cut outfit. The entire room fell silent before exploding with astonishment at the contrast between my innocent face and my passionate body. At the highest point of the runway, my eyes met Adrian's in the front row. I could not resist a shy smile as a shower of rose petals filled the air. He had secretly prepared them to celebrate my moment of success. After the show, our happiness increased when we confronted Hugo with a recording of his confession. He and his assistant experienced their own cruelty when every piece of clothing in their office was cut apart. The next morning, Ryan gave me an invitation to an international program lasting half a year. My heart became heavy because I feared that distance would weaken my feelings with Adrian. Ryan used the difficult history of his relationship with Mason to offer sincere advice. I should not be afraid. I needed to carry the confidence I displayed on the runway into my love and avoid a future filled with regret over my own fear. His words echoed through my mind on the drive home and gave me the courage to face my feelings honestly. The news that I would study abroad for 4 or 5 months created 100 tangled emotions. I celebrated a rare opportunity while fearing that time and distance would weaken a love that had only begun to bloom. Liam comforted me and teased me about the long-distance romance Adrian and I would share. With a red face, I wondered whether someone as ordinary as me truly deserved a man who seemed perfect in every way. Liam destroyed that insecurity with a powerful question. If Adrian did not love me as I was, why would he ignore every other talented person and continue choosing only me? Before I left, Adrian and I filmed the campaign for the paired Silver Lake watches named Dreaming Swans. The concept described the love between a black swan and a white swan. It sounded romantic, but the final kissing scene made my heart race. Adrian pretended to be calm and asked for my opinion. In a tiny voice, I said that I saw no problem and could accept the scene. The filming carried an atmosphere of hidden love beneath careful restraint. Our award-winning actor became unusually clumsy. Every time we reached the kiss, he made another mistake. We repeated it 10 times before the director accepted the result. I knew Adrian had done it deliberately, but his satisfied expression was too appealing for me to expose him. That evening, I invited him to dinner so that I could explain my heart. I placed a bank card containing 10 million yuan in front of him. I wanted to repay the lost watch and thank him for all his care. My attempt to settle the debt created a painful misunderstanding. Tears suddenly appeared in Adrian's eyes. His voice broke like that of an abandoned person. He asked whether giving him money meant that I wanted to calculate everything fairly before leaving. He said that perhaps all the love between us had existed only in his imagination. The powerful man suddenly became fragile, and my thoughts fell into chaos. Without allowing myself to hesitate, I gathered every fragment of courage, leaned forward, and stopped his painful words with a kiss. Adrian froze. The tears still clinging to his eyelashes seemed to disappear. His display of weakness had worked 10,000 times better than any attempt at seduction. 5 minutes after that destined kiss, I stared in disbelief as Adrian leaned against my shoulder like a small bird searching for protection. My entire body became rigid. I silently wondered whether our positions had somehow reversed. He gently told me not to feel pressure. I should study with confidence, and when I returned, we would officially become lovers. I quietly agreed, but asked him to keep the relationship secret. I still feared that if we separated in the future, the breakup might damage his reputation. Ryan and Mason had hidden their relationship for years for the same reason. Although Adrian felt disappointed, he accepted my request. We would reveal everything whenever I felt ready. The new definition of our relationship made both of us strangely shy. The drive home should have taken 15 minutes, but Adrian needed 45 because he refused to reach the moment of separation. Even at the Sterling gate, he drove so slowly that Gavin shouted from the balcony and offered to call a rescue vehicle because he assumed the car had broken. Before we separated, Adrian gave me an enormous surprise. The entire courtyard was filled with brilliant roses. When I saw the affectionate tears in his eyes, I regretted ever suspecting him of manipulation. We took photographs together inside the sea of flowers. Liam and Gavin watched with growing impatience because Adrian repeatedly reached toward my shoulder and withdrew his hand as if he feared someone would cut it off. A week passed in an instant, and the day of my departure arrived. My entire family, my unofficial husband, cream cake, and milk tea came to the airport. When I told milk tea to obey Uncle Adrian, he immediately corrected me and asked whether he was only an uncle. I answered innocently that because he was older than me, perhaps the dog should call him a senior uncle instead. Adrian became speechless, while Liam struggled not to injure himself through suppressed laughter. Inside the waiting area, my instructor, Neil Anderson, frightened me with warnings about the demanding program ahead. His words made me afraid and strengthened my determination at the same time. I secretly gave Liam a paper recording important future dates in the entertainment industry that I remembered from the original novel. I hoped that the information would help him while I was away. Marcus held my hand and repeated his instructions. If anyone treated me badly, I had to tell him immediately. He would abandon every business matter and travel across the world to bring me home. His love made me feel like the most treasured child in existence. When the final announcement called me toward the aircraft, I released my luggage and ran back to embrace Adrian. His eyes were wet like those of an abandoned puppy. I rose onto my toes and gave him a deep and passionate kiss. A kiss filled with connection and waiting. I whispered that he had to miss me and could never forget me. Adrian held my waist tightly and promised that he already missed me. I had to remember him too. During 5 months abroad, I trained until I lacked the strength to hold my phone. Adrian suffered equally at home. To ease his longing, he became a minor manager inside my online fan community. He loved me so deeply that he used a secret account to argue with his own fans whenever they said I was unworthy of him. He insisted that Adrian was the person depending on Ethan and called Adrian ordinary compared with me. My female fans attacked his foolish account without mercy and forced him to publish an apology to himself on social media. The unfortunate actor missed his partner while creating his own suffering in complete confusion. For long months passed. Only 20 days remained before my return. I had not seen Adrian once because Neil maintained an extremely strict schedule. My training was so demanding that rest became rare. Only once did Neil allow me enough time for a video call. When Adrian saw me, joy filled him because I had become confident and bright. At the same time, pain touched his expression when he realized how much hardship I had endured. At home, Adrian silently advanced from a minor manager to the leader of my fan community. He used his wealth to organize competitions and personally wrote stories and created images about our relationship. His secret account gained millions of followers. A ridiculous situation appeared when his own mother became a devoted fan who regularly sent gifts. Adrian helplessly asked everyone not to call him mother because his family might misunderstand. He requested the name Little Cream Cake instead. Before my return, Neil changed my appearance by giving me striking silver hair. I looked like a young man who had stepped out of an illustrated story. Neil ordered me to make my lover desire me the instant he saw me. He even intended to return with me and personally inspect the person who had captured his student's heart. I deliberately reported a return date 5 days later than the truth so that I could create a surprise. The moment I landed, however, a battle began at the airport. Neil accidentally walked into Adrian and spilled spicy beef sauce across the perfect white shirt Adrian had carefully prepared to welcome me. Irritated, Adrian offered him 200 yuan for the meat and ordered him to move out of the way. Neil shouted back in anger. At that moment, I ran toward them with my luggage and froze before the sight of the two most important men in my life glaring at each other. When Adrian recognized me, he immediately changed direction. With a guilty expression, he stammered a correction and respectfully praised Neil for becoming stronger with age. My first moment after returning already contained such a dramatic introduction. I did not know whether to laugh or cry at the confusion of the normally distant actor. Adrian pitifully attempted to touch me, but Neil repeatedly blocked him with the strength of an iron head. I felt amused and sympathetic about the price Adrian paid for accidentally calling my teacher an old man. As we left the vehicle, I secretly kissed his cheek to comfort him. I promised to explain everything to Neil and asked him not to worry. Warmth surrounded me when Marcus and Liam welcomed me with powerful embraces. I had truly grown and was no longer the weak young man from the past. Cream cake and milk tea rushed forward to greet me. I celebrated when milk tea bit Gavin for daring to call cream cake a pig-shaped cat. My welcome dinner became lively with the presence of Mason and Ryan. Mason cleverly praised Neil's youth until the older teacher became delighted. Adrian remained miserably silent because he feared being sent away. During the celebration, Neil announced that Mason and I would both appear in the International Dream Mode show in our country. It was an enormous opportunity to establish myself after the demanding program. Late that night, after every guest left, Adrian volunteered to carry my luggage upstairs. He quickly locked the door and held me as if he wanted to press me into his own body. In a sweet voice, he said that he had missed me terribly. He admitted that he had secretly flown to my school several times simply to be near me, even though he had never been allowed to see me. His hopeless expression softened my heart. I wrapped my arms around his waist and admitted that I no longer wanted to leave him either. Gavin knocked at the door and demanded that Adrian return home. Adrian reluctantly prepared to release me because he feared creating a poor impression with my family. I gathered all my courage, tightened my fingers around his hand, and offered a bold invitation. I asked him not to leave and to stay with me that night. Adrian agreed instantly. He ignored Gavin striking the door and demanding that his friend return. With a satisfied expression, Adrian secretly took several strawberry candies from Gavin so that he could prepare for kissing me. I felt amused and embarrassed by my own lack of restraint. Then I decided that restraint was unnecessary because we were no longer children. After showering, I gathered my courage and entered in a loosely arranged robe to create a romantic atmosphere. My honorable man approached and carefully pulled the collar closed. He said that the weather was cold and warned me not to become ill. I felt slightly disappointed, but his attentive care while drying my hair softened me. He praised the beauty of my silver hair. In the quiet darkness, I became the person who offered a goodnight kiss. The next morning, the battle between cream cake and milk tea woke us on the bed. Adrian could only rest his face against my shoulder and complain like a small bird. At noon, everyone gathered at Ryan's company. I became anxious when I saw Neil waiting there, while Adrian trembled and offered a gift in apology. He asked the teacher to accept it and become less angry. Unfortunately, Liam's habit of caring for older people produced a deadly introduction. He explained that Adrian had spent the entire night selecting essential health supplements for an elderly person. Adrian had noticed that Neil was advanced in age and required support. The word elderly struck directly at Neil's greatest weakness. Neil jumped to his feet, struck Adrian's shoulder, and laughed coldly while praising his extraordinary thoughtfulness. Gavin mocked my unfortunate future husband. I gently touched Adrian's shoulder and told him not to worry. We could buy a different gift for Neil later. In the middle of the crisis, Derek revealed the existence of a mysterious online creator named Ethan Love. The person had secretly supported our fan community, spent enormous amounts on events, and written hundreds of thousands of words of passionate stories about Adrian and me. I read a small passage and turned bright red because of its intensity. The creator sat beside me and awkwardly touched his nose. He had never imagined that I would consider his supposedly innocent writing so seductive. To improve my mood, I invited Adrian to the supermarket and subtly displayed the firm lines of my newly trained stomach. His eyes suddenly became unusually bright. I boldly moved close to his ear and promised that I would allow only him to see everything that evening. The words turned the actor bright red. He stammered his agreement. At the register, he casually picked up a box that he believed contained mint candy and offered a discount. I stared and nearly fainted. The package clearly contained the largest available size of protection. The cashier gave us a meaningful look of blessing, while I wanted the floor to swallow me. The tragedy continued at the restaurant when we overheard Mason betray my secret to Neil. Mason claimed that Neil had misunderstood. My refusal to reveal the relationship had been my own decision because I had prepared myself for an eventual breakup. A chill passed along my spine. I turned and saw deep pain across Adrian's face. His voice trembled with bitterness as he asked whether I had truly prepared myself to leave him. Mason's careless mouth shattered Adrian's heart directly in front of me. Throughout dinner, Adrian answered only when required. Guilt tightened my chest. No amount of food placed in his bowl could win back his warmth. When Mason saw the tension, he pulled me into a corner and scolded me for my fear. Then he proposed a dangerous plan. Adrian was now the most powerful person in the industry, so no one would dare mock him. I had to stop worrying about imaginary problems, comfort him that evening, and sit on his lap until he surrendered. The moment we returned home, another ridiculous problem appeared. Liam had suffered an injury during an intimate accident with Gavin. Their embarrassed faces made Adrian innocently accuse Gavin of striking his lover. Everyone stared at the sudden purity of the famous actor. To resolve the conflict between us, Victor advised his son to pretend that he was cold and distant. Adrian should refuse to soften until I approached and begged for peace. When I quietly entered the room and found him sitting without movement, I gathered my courage and followed Mason's instructions. I sat on Adrian's lap, placed my arms around his neck, and sweetly asked him to stop being angry. I begged him to look at me. I promised that I had never wanted to leave and had only been worried about him. A passionate kiss proved my sincerity. Adrian finally smiled, lifted me, and placed me on the bed. His serious expression made my heart race. I assumed that the moment had arrived to use the box from the supermarket, so I shyly closed my eyes. I admitted that this was my first time and that I felt nervous. Adrian laughed and gently touched my cheek. He asked me to open my eyes. Instead of anything indecent, I saw him kneeling on one knee and holding a red velvet box with 2 shining rings. He asked me to marry him. The atmosphere felt almost impossible to believe. Adrian Hawthorne was kneeling in the quiet room and asking for my hand. When I froze, he became nervous and feared that his preparation had been too simple. Then I stammered my agreement again and again. Adrian breathed with relief and thanked me. Our sacred moment sounded like an ordinary conversation at a market. When he placed a diamond ring worth 200 million yuan on my finger, I nearly fainted. To honor the day, we decided to reveal our relationship during the final episode of the dating show. When I mentioned our first meeting outside the bar restroom, every romantic thought in Adrian's mind disappeared. Instead of using the box of protection as I had imagined, he brought out a camera and asked me to pose for photographs throughout the afternoon. His soul was pure in a truly unusual way. The evening celebration with both families became lively, although I remained determined to accept more work and earn money through my own effort. I wanted to buy Adrian a ring with my own money instead of using the bank card from Marcus that contained an impossible fortune. While I calculated my plans, Adrian rushed over and pulled me away to hide because he feared my father would take me home. We even risked returning to steal cream cake and milk tea so that they could escape with us. During the journey, we met Gavin while he was collecting a patch for Liam's sore waist. Adrian innocently criticized him again for attacking his lover. Gavin finally leaned close and carefully explained the mature meaning of fighting in bed. After hearing the explanation, Adrian became unusually serious. He secretly searched online and discovered a ridiculous warning about the harmful effects of intimacy. Mild cases supposedly caused paralysis, while severe cases sent a person directly into the afterlife. Terrified by the false information, Adrian turned pale and decided that we would begin a pure relationship in order to protect my health. I sat downstairs holding the cat, completely unaware that my boyfriend had placed me on a life of strict purity because of another dangerous misunderstanding from the internet. Neil proved that he was a true demon during training. He criticized Mason and me so relentlessly that we could barely recover between his attacks, while Ryan watched with pain and did not dare interfere. Adrian always waited silently in the parking area. The moment he saw me, he lifted me with complete sympathy and asked why I had not sent him a message when he had been waiting for so long. Social media exploded with accusations that I depended on Adrian. My devoted fan account, Ethan Love, spent 100 million yuan on a prize event supporting me. I felt guilty and secretly sent a message asking the fan to stop. The account confidently claimed to know the identity of my lover. It even described Adrian as ordinary and unworthy of me. I did not know whether to laugh or cry at the enormous prejudice of this obsessed supporter. Before the show, I wore magnificent traditional clothing decorated with golden thread and looked like a brave young general. Mason looked dangerously seductive. When I admitted that Adrian and I had spent a month living together and had only watched animated films, Mason delivered another shocking judgment. He said that a magnificent man who refused to act was probably capable of lasting only 1 minute and that I should find a doctor for him quickly. I returned home in complete confusion and accidentally overheard Adrian sharing his worries with Cream Cake. He feared that I would dislike him if I discovered that he wanted only a pure and spiritual love. I misunderstood once again. I believed that my famous actor lacked confidence in his physical ability and intended to begin a pure relationship because of that painful secret. I decided to pretend that I had no physical desire so that he would feel less ashamed. As long as we could remain together, that would be enough for me. Our peace ended when another storm of training arrived. Neil required 5 days of secret rehearsal and refused to allow us to return home. Adrian missed me so badly that he accepted 3 advertising contracts simply to gain excuses for visiting and secretly bringing food. He urged me to eat quickly before Neil discovered him. His anxious care felt both sweet and painful to witness. The performance became a brilliant success. Mason and I delivered an extraordinary presentation that destroyed every doubt about our ability. At the moment of our greatest celebration, another violent wave arrived through the schemes of Felix Quinn. An old video suddenly appeared across social media. It showed the original Ethan drunk at the bar, clinging to Adrian and embracing him in a humiliating manner. The accompanying attacks called me a calculating liar who had changed his image only to attach himself to the film star. My heart tightened under the cruel comments. The dark past of this body had become a hidden weapon that exploded at my happiest moment. The video appeared immediately after the most successful show of my career. Although the image was unclear, everyone recognized me holding Adrian's arm with pleading eyes. His obsessive fans attacked me as a shameless pursuer and claimed that Adrian had looked at me with disgust. Each sentence made my heart hurt. Adrian did not hide behind a secret account. He used his official profile to confront the source directly. He publicly addressed the representative of the largest gossip platform and expressed the hope that they could defend their lies with equal confidence before a judge. His decisive protection of his future husband caused the entire internet to erupt and filled me with warmth. To escape the noise, Adrian took me to a seaside villa where we could enjoy a private world together. Waves moved beneath the sunlight as I watched him carefully knit a pair of woolen socks, another skill he had recently learned. His gentleness made me move closer and behave sweetly like a small cat. I told Adrian that I loved him deeply. No matter what he was like, I would always love every part of him. I wanted him to understand that even if he was weak or preferred a pure spiritual relationship, I would never mock him. Adrian's ears turned red. He dropped the unfinished socks and held me tightly. He said that he loved me too and loved me even more than I loved him. While we drowned in sweetness, Gavin called and ruined the moment. Felix had created the latest scandal. An alliance formed immediately to remove him from our lives. Liam, Gavin, Mason, and Ryan visited Felix directly. They did not use complicated schemes. They selected the most practical method, taught him an unforgettable lesson, and forced him to leave the entertainment industry. While I rested peacefully, the guardians surrounding me silently removed every obstacle from my path. 3 days later, Adrian and I returned with cream cake and milk tea to film the final 7 days of Heartbeat Guests. Hannah called and claimed that she had overslept, so we should enter the house without waiting. I innocently believed her. I had no idea that hidden cameras began broadcasting to millions of viewers from the moment we crossed the entrance. The living room appeared empty, and Adrian suddenly became bold. He placed an arm around my waist and lowered his face until his warm breath touched me. He suggested that we use the moment before anyone arrived to share a kiss. Before I could answer, millions of comments exploded across the live stream. Viewers asked whether the show intended to become this exciting from its first minute and whether the famous actor planned to devour Ethan during a live broadcast. The atmosphere became suffocating from the moment we entered the shared house. Believing that no one had arrived, Adrian looked at me with expectation and repeated his request for a kiss. With a red face, I agreed but insisted that we share only one and allow no one to see us. Our passionate kiss appeared directly before millions of viewers. Hannah and the production team had created the trap in advance and hidden cameras everywhere to record our reaction. When she ran downstairs with a satisfied laugh, I wanted to become a frightened turtle and hide inside Adrian's arms. The arrival of the other couples created an equally powerful reaction. Gavin and Liam openly held hands. The greatest shock came from Ryan, who brought his husband, my teacher Mason. They held hands and wore shining wedding rings. Mason naturally acted sweetly toward Ryan and complained that he was exhausted because Ryan had refused to release him the previous night despite knowing that filming began in the morning. I admired Mason's confidence and felt embarrassed on Ryan's behalf. The battle of rings continued. Everyone admired Mason's diamond worth 50 million yuan. Then Gavin accidentally revealed that he had purchased a blue diamond called Eternal Lover for Liam at a price exceeding 300 million. I finally understood why Mason had complained that an anonymous bidder had competed against him for a rare diamond. The criminal had been our own troublesome friend. The show began with a cruel drawing that assigned rooms. Fate placed Mason and me together, while Gavin and Liam received exactly what they wanted and shared a room. Gavin celebrated and mocked Adrian, who stood frozen after being separated from me. I could only force a bitter smile. Adrian became so resentful that he attached a recording device to Cream Cake's collar and sent the cat into my room to monitor Mason. The moment we entered, Mason turned off the camera so that we could speak privately. I expected professional advice. Instead, he moved close and lowered his voice before asking a question that nearly knocked down me and the two men listening through hidden devices, Adrian and Ryan. He asked whether Adrian and I had resolved the problem with his physical weakness. I fought to protect Adrian's reputation from Mason's mockery. Even if Adrian intended to begin a completely pure relationship, I had to assure every outsider that he possessed extraordinary ability. Mason secretly copied the number of a traditional doctor who specialized in such problems from Ryan's phone and gave it to me. Ryan stood frozen because he feared that someone would misunderstand. Adrian listened from outside and felt relieved. He was not the only person whose ability had been questioned, because Ryan had accidentally suffered the same fate. Our first evening in the shared house became warm and peaceful. Ryan demonstrated remarkable cooking skill, which surprised me. He explained that he normally refused to cook for anyone when Mason was absent because he feared his husband would become jealous. Mason truly was a jar filled with vinegar. Before Ryan left for the show, he had secretly destroyed every piece of Ryan's underwear as a warning. I admired Ryan's complete affection and decided that they truly were a pair created by heaven. While we enjoyed the air on the balcony, Mason unexpectedly asked about our marriage plans. Adrian answered without hesitation. He wanted to marry Ethan as soon as possible and become Ethan's person. Hearing a famous actor say that he wanted to become mine filled me with laughter and unbearable sweetness. Liam and Gavin delivered an even greater shock by announcing that they would marry the following May. Gavin became so happy that he released the same ridiculous cry as Olivia. The romantic atmosphere disappeared instantly, and Liam dragged him toward their room in embarrassment. Hannah forced each couple to sleep separately, but Adrian and Ryan refused to accept the arrangement. After the main cameras turned off, both husbands secretly entered our room to steal their partners. Adrian moved quickly, lifted me, and carried me back to his room. When he saw the tube of hand cream Mason had given me, he spread a small amount across my fingers and whispered that my skin was truly soft. The way he treasured my hand made my heart melt. The final day of Heartbeat guests brought a happiness so powerful that it became difficult to breathe. During the previous days, I had secretly gathered all the money I had earned. I even borrowed 10 million yuan from Mason so that I could buy Adrian a ring worth 50 million. On this special day, I wanted to become the person who acted first and show him how important he was inside my heart. I did not know that Liam, Gavin, and Ryan had created a secret study group and planned to transform the evening into the greatest double proposal in the history of television. For the finale, the show reserved a luxurious yacht on the beautiful lake. Soft roses and brilliant lights filled the air as Hannah asked difficult questions chosen by the audience. When she asked about the most intimate thing Adrian and I had done, I honestly admitted that we had only kissed. My innocent answer shocked the guests and every livestream viewer. No one could believe that a film star desired by millions possessed such remarkable restraint. The empty deck suddenly filled with thousands of roses and shining lights that resembled stars. Adrian appeared, elegant and perfect in every detail. My heart raced. I believed that this was the opportunity Mason had prepared for me. I gathered all my courage and prepared to kneel. A small sound followed as Adrian and I dropped to the deck at the same moment. In my panic, I landed on both knees as if beginning a memorial ceremony, which made everyone laugh. I corrected my position with a red face and removed the ring box with trembling hands. I asked Adrian to marry me and promised to treat him well for the rest of my life. Adrian stared in astonishment. Then he opened his own red velvet box. Inside rested a unique blue diamond that he had won at auction and reserved for me. He held my hand with endless love in his eyes. He explained that he had been kneeling because he wanted to propose to me. He wanted us to build a true home together, a place where I would always remain the most important person. The promise touched the deepest desire for family inside me. I could not resist another strange cry before I began sobbing. The sound remained unusual because of Olivia's influence, but Adrian's sincerity made me feel like the happiest person in the world. Brilliant fireworks covered the lake. We placed the rings on each other's hands and shared our most passionate kiss before our families, our friends, and millions of viewers. After every storm and misunderstanding, I finally possessed a true family with Adrian Hawthorne, the most peaceful home my life had ever known. Thank you for staying with BL Storytime until the end of this story. Please like the video and subscribe to BL Storytime so that we can share more wonderful stories with you. We will meet again in the next story.